The sickening crack of bone against flesh echoed through the Detroit night as Officer Vince Carver's fist connected with 17-year-old Kiana Brooks's jaw. Blood splattered across the diner window, her body crumpling against the cold pavement, while onlookers gasped in horror. But Carver's sadistic grin froze when a deep voice cut through the chaos. "That's my daughter." The racist cop turned to find himself staring down the barrel of justice itself. Marcus Tate, Detroit's newly appointed chief of police badge, gleaming under the streetlights. What happens next will shake an entire city to its core, expose a web of corruption decades in the making and test whether truth can survive when the system itself is rigged. Stay with me till the end of this incredible story and drop a comment about which city you're watching from. I want to see how far our message of justice has traveled. The fluorescent lights of Mama's Soul Kitchen buzzed overhead as Kiana Brooks pushed through the door, her backpack heavy with AP textbooks and college applications. The familiar scent of cornbread and collard greens wrapped around her like a warm embrace. She'd been coming here since she was 6, back when her dad first became a detective working cases that kept him away most nights. "Hey, baby girl," Mama Washington called from behind the counter, her gray hair wrapped in a colorful headscarf. "Your usual booth is waiting." Kiana smiled, sliding into the cracked vinyl seat by the window. She pulled out her calculus homework, the numbers swimming before her tired eyes. Track practice had run late, and she still had an essay due tomorrow on James Baldwin. But this was her routine homework at Mama's then home by 9, just like she'd promised her father. The bell above the door chimed aggressively as 3 police officers entered. Kiana's stomach tightened instinctively, a reaction she'd developed over 17 years of being black in America. She recognized Officer Vince Carver immediately. His reputation preceded him through whispered warnings in her neighborhood. 6 feet of barely contained rage stuffed into a blue uniform, with a complaint file thicker than a phone book that somehow never resulted in consequences. "Well, well, well," Carver's voice slithered across the diner as his pale eyes locked onto Kiana. "Looks like we got ourselves a potential situation here." Mama Washington's hand moved to the phone behind the counter. "There's no situation here, officers. This is a family establishment." "I'll be the judge of that," Carver sneered, moving toward Kiana's booth. His partners, Officers Daniels and Reeves, flanked him like hyenas circling prey. "You got ID, girl?" Kiana's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her wallet. "I'm just doing homework, officer." "I didn't ask what you were doing." Carver snatched the ID from her hand, examining it with theatrical suspicion. "Kiana Brooks. You wouldn't happen to be related to Marcus Brooks, would you?" "It's Tate. Marcus Tate is my father," she said quietly, knowing any show of defiance would escalate things. She'd had this conversation with her dad countless times. Comply, survive, fight it in court later. "Tate, huh?" Carver's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. That uppity detective who thinks he's too good for the Brotherhood, the one who testified against Officer Coleman last year. The first mini-climax hit when Carver suddenly swept Kiana's books off the table, sending papers flying across the floor. "Oops, looks like you're littering." "That's enough." Mama Washington stepped from behind the counter, her phone in hand. "I'm calling." "You're calling nobody, old woman." Officer Daniels intercepted her, his hand resting on his service weapon. The tension in the diner thickened like smoke. Kiana bent to gather her papers, her hands shaking with a mixture of fear and rage. "I'll clean it up. There's no problem here." "See, that's where you're wrong." Carver grabbed her arm as she stood his grip tight enough to bruise. "You match the description of a suspect we're looking for. Young black female, suspicious behavior." "What suspect? What crime?" Kiana's voice cracked despite her efforts to stay calm. "The crime of being in the wrong place with the wrong skin color." Carver whispered, his breath reeking of cigarettes and something sharper, whiskey maybe. The door burst open again. Marcus Tate entered in civilian clothes, but his presence filled the room like a force of nature. 6'3" of controlled power, his jaw clenched as he assessed the scene, His daughter's arm in Carver's grip, Mama Washington cornered papers scattered across the floor. "Let her go." His voice was deadly quiet. Carver laughed. "Detective Tate, fancy seeing you here. Just conducting a routine investigation." "I said let my daughter go." "Your daughter?" Carver's grip tightened, making Kiana wince. "Well, isn't that interesting? Maybe she's the leverage we've been looking for to teach you about loyalty." The second mini-climax erupted when Marcus took a step forward. "You've got 3 seconds to release her before..." "Before what?" Carver shoved Kiana toward the door. "Before you do something stupid, you're off duty, detective. And last I checked, I outrank you on the streets." "Actually..." Marcus reached into his jacket, pulling out a gold badge that caught the light like fire. "You don't. As of this morning, I'm the new chief of police for Detroit. So I'll say it one more time. Let her go." The silence that followed was deafening. Carver's face cycled through disbelief, rage, and something that looked like fear before settling on defiance. "Bullshit. Mitchell is chief." "Mitchell retired, effective immediately. Mayor's orders." Marcus held up his phone showing the official announcement that had gone out just hours ago, deliberately kept quiet to avoid exactly this kind of confrontation. "Now you're assaulting my daughter and disobeying a direct order from your commanding officer." Carver's partners stepped back suddenly, wanting distance from their colleague. But Carver himself seemed to spiral into madness, his face reddening. "You think you can just waltz in here, take over, and change everything? You don't know who you're messing with." "I know exactly who I'm messing with." Marcus moved closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Vincent Carver. 17 excessive force complaints. 3 lawsuits settled out of court. 2 witnesses who mysteriously recanted testimony. And that's just what's on record." The third mini-climax detonated when Carver suddenly spun Kiana around, using her as a shield. "You want to play hardball? Fine. Your daughter's under arrest for resisting." The crack was thunderous. No one saw Marcus move, but suddenly Carver was on the ground, blood streaming from his nose. Kiana stumbled free, running to her father's arms. "You just assaulted an officer!" Daniels reached for his radio. "No!" Marcus held up his phone, which had been recording the entire encounter. "I just defended my daughter from an officer who was committing assault under color of law. Call it in, Daniels. Call in every unit. I want everyone to see this." Carver struggled to his feet, his hand moving to his weapon. The fourth mini-climax peaked as every person in the diner held their breath. "You're making a mistake, Tate. You don't know how deep this goes." "Then educate me," Marcus challenged. "Pull that weapon. Give me a reason." The sound of sirens filled the air, multiple units responding to Daniel's call. Within minutes, the small diner was surrounded by police cars, their lights painting the walls in alternating blue and red. Officers poured out, hands on weapons, unsure whose side to take. Deputy Chief Rollins arrived, his massive frame filling the doorway. A 30-year veteran with skin like leather and eyes that had seen too much, he surveyed the scene with calculated interest. "What the hell is going on here?" "Chief Tate just assaulted Officer Carver," Daniels reported quickly. "Chief Tate?" Rollins's eyebrows rose. "Since when?" "Since this morning." Marcus stood straighter still, shielding Kiana with his body. "And Officer Carver was assaulting my daughter when I intervened." "That's a lie." Carver spat blood onto the floor. "The girl was resisting a lawful order." "What order?" "What crime?" Marcus demanded. "I want it on record. What crime did you suspect my 17-year-old daughter of committing while she did homework in a diner?" The fifth mini-climax struck when someone in the crowd, a young man named Jalen, held up his phone. "I got it all on video, posted it live. It's already got 10,000 views." Carver's face went pale. Rollins' expression darkened. The age of citizen journalism had arrived in Mama's soul kitchen, and there was no putting that genie back in the bottle. "Everyone needs to calm down," Rollins commanded, but his authority seemed suddenly brittle. "Chief Tate, if you're really the new chief, We should handle this through proper channels. Proper channels. Marcus laughed bitterly. Like the proper channels that let Carver stay on the force after beating Terrell Johnson into a coma. Those proper channels. The crowd outside was growing drawn by the social media posts, spreading like wildfire. "Justice for Kiana!" someone shouted. The chant picked up, growing louder. "You're creating a riot," Rollins warned. "No, your officer created this situation when he put his hands on a child," Marcus shot back. "I'm ending it. Officer Carver, you're under arrest for assault, violation of civil rights, and conduct unbecoming an officer." "You can't arrest me." Carver backed toward his partners. "Daniels, Reeves, back me up." But his partners stepped aside, unwilling to challenge the new chief, with cameras rolling and crowds growing. The sixth mini-climax peaked as Carver found himself alone, surrounded, his usual protection stripped away. "This isn't over," he snarled at Marcus. "You think you can come in here and change things? You don't know who runs this city. The blue line runs deeper than you think." "Then I'll dig deeper," Marcus replied, pulling out handcuffs. "Turn around. You're going to regret this. Your daughter, your family, you've just painted targets on all of them." The threat hung in the air like poison gas. Kiana pressed closer to her father, feeling the tremor run through his body. Not fear, but rage barely contained. "Is that a threat, Officer Carver? In front of all these witnesses?" "It's a promise," Carver hissed as the cuffs clicked around his wrists. "You think you're some kind of hero? You're just another dead man walking." The seventh mini-climax erupted when a bottle flew from the crowd, shattering against a police car. Then another. The tension that had been building exploded into chaos. Officers raised their shields as the crowd pressed forward, phones recording everything. "Stand down," Marcus commanded his officers. "No one fires. No one engages." But some officers were already moving, loyal to Rollins rather than their new chief. Tear gas canisters flew into the crowd. Screams filled the air. In the confusion, Kiana was separated from her father, pushed back by the surge of bodies. "Dad!" she screamed, but her voice was lost in the cacophony. Strong hands grabbed her, pulling her into an alley. She thought it was someone helping until she saw the uniform officer, Reeves, Carver's partner. "Your daddy made a big mistake," Reeves growled, shoving her against a brick wall. "Maybe we need to send him a message." The eighth mini-climax struck as Kiana's track training kicked in. She drove her knee up hard, catching Reeves in the groin. As he doubled over, she sprinted back toward the chaos, weaving through tear gas and protesters. She found her father in the middle of it all, trying to restore order. "Dad!" He spun, relief flooding his face as he pulled her close. "We need to get you out of here." "Chief Tate." A young officer named Williams appeared, one of the few black cops on the force. "I've got a car around back. I can get you both clear." They moved through the chaos, Carver being dragged along by two officers Marcus trusted. But as they reached the car, Rollins appeared with a squad of loyalists. "I don't think so, Chief." Rollins set his hand on his weapon. "Maybe we need to discuss the chain of command here." "The chain of command is clear." Marcus stood firm. "I'm the chief. You're the deputy. Stand down." "See, that's where things get complicated." Rollins smiled coldly. "You might have the mayor's blessing, but you don't have the department. And in this city, the department makes its own rules." The ninth mini-climax peaked when Officer Williams stepped beside Marcus, weapon drawn, but pointed down. Then another officer joined them, Martinez, a rookie who'd seen too much already. Then another. Soon, the department was literally divided, facing off in the alley, while chaos reigned in the street. "This is insane," Kiana shouted. "You're police officers." "No, sweetheart," Rollins corrected. "We're the real power in this city. Your daddy's about to learn that lesson." "The only lesson here," Marcus said quietly, "is that corruption has an expiration date, and yours just came due." He held up his phone again. He'd been recording the entire exchange. "Every word, Rollins, every threat, already uploaded to the cloud and sent to the FBI field office." Rollins's face went through several shades before settling on a dangerous purple. You just declared war on the entire department. No, I declared war on the corrupt ones. The good cops will stand with me. We'll see about that. Rollins backed away with his loyalists. Remember, Tate, you've got to go home sometime. Your family's got to live in this city. Accidents happen, even to chiefs. The 10th mini-climax hit when Carver, still cuffed, started laughing a sound like breaking glass. You have no idea what you've started, Tate. No idea at all. As they finally got Carver into a squad car and Kiana into Williams' vehicle, Marcus looked at the chaos he'd inherited his first day as chief, and the city was literally burning. But he also saw something else in the crowd: hope. Young faces recording everything, demanding change, refusing to accept the status quo. Dad? Kiana grabbed his hand through the car window. Are we going to be okay? He squeezed her hand, feeling the weight of the badge in his pocket. We're going to be better than okay. We're going to change this city. As Williams drove Kiana away to safety, Marcus turned back to face the storm. His phone buzzed with messages: the mayor, the media, the FBI. The video of Carver assaulting Kiana had gone viral, over 1 million views in just an hour. # justice. For Kiana was trending nationally. The 11th mini-climax struck when Marcus noticed something wrong. Several officers were missing, including Daniels, and Carver's squad car was stopped 2 blocks away, surrounded by Rollins' loyalists. No. Marcus started running, other loyal officers following, but by the time they reached the car, it was too late. The back door was open, cuffs dangling from the handle. Carver was gone. Where is he? Marcus grabbed the transport officer. I don't know, Chief. Deputy Chief Rollins said he had authority to... He has no authority, Marcus roared. Find Carver, now. But even as units scrambled to search, Marcus knew the truth. Carver was probably already hidden away, protected by the shadow network that had run Detroit's police for decades. The blue line that operated outside the law, outside accountability. His phone rang. Kiana's number. He answered immediately. Baby, are you okay? But it wasn't Kiana's voice that answered. She's fine, Chief, for now. Carver's voice was silk over steel. But that could change real quick. Marcus's blood turned to ice. If you touch her... Oh, I won't touch her. Not personally. But this city's dangerous, you know. Especially for a black girl who doesn't know her place. Shame if something happened while Daddy was trying to play hero. Carver, listen to me. The line went dead. Marcus immediately called Williams. Where's my daughter? She's right here, Chief. Safe and wait. What? Williams' voice turned sharp. Someone's following us. Multiple vehicles. The 12th mini-climax exploded as Marcus heard the squeal of tires through the phone, Kiana's scream, the sound of impact. Williams, report. We're okay. Williams' voice came back, stressed. They tried to ram us, but I evaded. Heading to the safe house now. Negative, bring her to the precinct. I want her where I can see her. As Marcus raced back to his command post, his phone exploded with notifications. The video wasn't just viral, it had become a movement. Protests were organizing in 6 major cities. The hashtag had evolved, #the Chiefs Fight. But in Detroit, the battle lines were being drawn. Text messages leaked from police group chats showed officers choosing sides. Some supported their new chief's stand against corruption. Others rallied behind Rollins and the old guard, viewing Marcus as a threat to their way of life. The 13th mini-climax struck when Marcus arrived at the precinct to find it surrounded not by protesters, but by off-duty cops. They stood in silent menace, some in civilian clothes, others in tactical gear they'd borrowed. The message was clear: the new chief wasn't welcome in his own house. Stand aside, Marcus commanded, walking straight toward them. Or what? One of them challenged Sergeant Pike, a 20-year veteran with a reputation for violence. You gonna arrest all of us? If necessary, Pike laughed. With what army? That's when the crowd behind Marcus made itself known. Not just cops, citizens. Hundreds of them, phones out recording everything. They'd followed their new chief, ready to witness whatever came next. With this army, Marcus said quietly. The people you swore to protect and serve. The standoff stretched taut as a wire. Then from inside the precinct, officers began emerging, the ones who'd been waiting to see which way the wind would blow. One by one they stood behind Marcus. Not many at first, but enough. Your move, Pike, Marcus said. Pike's hand twitched toward his weapon. The crowd tensed. Phones zoomed in. This was it, the moment that would define Detroit's future. The 14th mini-climax peaked when a voice cut through the tension. Enough! Mayor Patricia Williams emerged from a black SUV flanked by FBI agents. A former prosecutor who'd won election on a reform platform, she'd been waiting for the right moment to strike at police corruption. Marcus's appointment had been her first move. This confrontation was the second. Sergeant Pike, you and your associates are relieved of duty pending investigation, she announced. FBI agents are already at your homes with warrants. The party's over, gentlemen. The silence that followed was deafening. Pike's face contorted with rage. You can't do this. We are the thin blue line. No, the mayor replied. You're criminals with badges, and your time is up. As FBI agents moved in, some officers scattered, others submitted to arrest. But in the chaos, no one noticed the black van pulling up to the precinct's side entrance, or the figures in tactical gear who emerged from it. Marcus was inside, finally holding Kiana, when the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red. Then came the smoke grenades, filling the corridors with thick, choking clouds. Get down! Marcus shoved Kiana under a desk as windows shattered. Figures repelled in, not cops, not FBI, something else. Private military contractors maybe, or mercenaries. They moved with military precision toward the evidence lockup. The 15th and final mini-climax of Part 1 erupted in violence. Marcus engaged the first intruder, his police training matched against military tactics. They crashed through cubicles, weapons firing. Other officers joined the fight, but the attackers had come prepared. They're after something specific, Williams shouted, firing from cover. Marcus realized with crystal clarity what it was. The evidence room held decades of documentation on police corruption files that could bring down half the city's power structure. Files he'd planned to review tomorrow. Protect the evidence room, he commanded, but it was too late. Explosions rocked the building. When the smoke cleared, the evidence room was a smoking crater, years of carefully documented crimes reduced to ash. In the aftermath, as sirens wailed and the wounded were tended, Marcus held his daughter close. She was shaking, but unharmed. Her eyes wide with the realization of what they'd stumbled into. Dad, what was that? Who were those people? I don't know, baby, but we're going to find out. Deputy Chief Rollins appeared in the doorway, his uniform somehow pristine despite the chaos. Terrible thing, this terrorist attack. Good thing no evidence of value was lost, just old files scheduled for destruction anyway. The threat in his smile was clear. This was just the beginning. As Part 1 drew to a close, Marcus stood in his ruined precinct. His daughter at his side, surrounded by officers he couldn't trust and enemies he couldn't identify. The viral video had made them famous, but fame was a double-edged sword. The nation was watching, but in Detroit, the real war was just beginning. Carver was still out there, protected by shadows. The evidence that could have exposed the corruption was gone. And Marcus had to somehow protect his family while fighting a system that had decades of practice in destroying reformers. But as he looked at Kiana, brave, brilliant Kiana, who'd stood up to Carver even when terrified, he knew backing down wasn't an option. They'd drawn first blood, but he'd finished the war. Outside, the protests continued growing larger as night fell. The chant had evolved. No justice, no peace. The chief fights, we fight. Marcus turned to the loyal officers who'd stood with him. From now on, we do things differently. We document everything. We trust no one outside this circle, and we protect each other because they're coming for all of us." As if in response to his words, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Just 2 words, "You're dead." But beneath that, another message, this one from a contact at the FBI. "We're watching. Keep fighting. Change is coming." The battle for Detroit's soul had begun, and there would be no neutral ground. Every officer would have to choose stand with corruption or stand for justice. And in a city where corruption ran deeper than the Detroit River, justice seemed like an impossible dream. But impossible dreams were exactly what Kiana had been raised to chase. As she looked up at her father, she saw not just the chief of police, but a man willing to risk everything for what was right. "We're going to win this, aren't we, Dad?" Marcus looked down at his daughter, seeing in her eyes the future Detroit could be, should be. "Yes, baby. No matter what it costs, we're going to win." The lights of the city sparkled beyond the shattered windows, each one representing a life that hung in the balance. Tomorrow would bring new battles, new betrayals, new tests of their resolve. But tonight, in this moment, father and daughter stood together against the darkness, ready to fight for a dawn that seemed impossibly far away. The revolution had begun with a punch thrown in a diner. It would end only when the last corrupt cop was behind bars, or when the reformers were silenced forever. In Detroit, there would be no middle ground. The acrid smell of smoke still clung to Marcus's uniform as he guided Kiana through the precinct's emergency exit at 3 in the morning. They'd been there for hours giving statements to federal agents while firefighters secured what remained of the evidence room. Every step echoed with broken glass crunching underfoot, a symphony of destruction that marked the new battlefield in their war against corruption. Chief Tate, Agent Sarah Coleman, intercepted them in the parking garage, her FBI windbreaker still dusty from the explosion. "We need to move your family to a safe house immediately." "No." Marcus's response was immediate and firm. "Running makes us look weak. We stay visible." "Dad." Kiana tugged his sleeve, exhaustion etched across her young face. "Maybe we should—" Her words were cut short by the screech of tires. A black Charger roared into the garage, heading straight for them. Marcus shoved Kiana behind a concrete pillar as the car skidded to a stop, windows rolling down to reveal gun barrels. The first mini-climax erupted as bullets sprayed across the garage. Marcus returned fire while pulling Kiana deeper into cover. Agent Coleman was already on her radio calling for backup, but the attackers weren't waiting. 3 men in ski masks emerged, moving with tactical precision. "Go back stairwell." Marcus pushed Kiana toward the door, laying covering fire. They burst through, taking the stairs 3 at a time, the sound of pursuit echoing below. They emerged on the 3rd floor, the detective division, Marcus's old stomping grounds. Detective Ray Thompson was there working late on case files. His eyes widened, seeing his former partner and new chief bleeding from a graze on his arm. "Ray, thank God," Marcus gasped. "We need—" Thompson's gun was already drawn, but it wasn't pointed at the stairwell. It was aimed at Marcus. "Sorry, Chief, but Rollins pays better than the city." The second mini-climax hit like a physical blow. Marcus had trained this man, trusted him with his life countless times. Now that same man was ready to end it. "Uncle Ray!" Kiana's voice broke with disbelief. Thompson had been at her birthday parties, her graduation. "You're with them?" "It's not personal, kid. It's survival. Your dad should have taken the hint and walked away." The stairwell door exploded open. In the split second of distraction, Marcus struck his elbow, connecting with Thompson's jaw. The detective's shot went wide, shattering a window. Kiana grabbed a desk lamp and swung it with all her track-trained strength, catching Thompson in the temple. He dropped like a stone. "We need to move." Marcus grabbed Thompson's keys and radio. "They'll have the building surrounded soon." They made it to Thompson's unmarked car, peeling out of the garage as more vehicles converged on the precinct. Marcus's phone buzzed constantly. Officers checking in, some offering support, others ominously silent. The battle lines were crystallizing with every passing hour. "Where are we going?" Kiana asked, gripping the door handle as Marcus took a corner at dangerous speed. "The one place they won't expect." He pulled into an abandoned warehouse district, navigating through shadows until they reached a nondescript building. "My old informant's safe house. Nobody knows about it except—" The door opened before he could knock. Tasha Williams stood there, Kiana's best friend since kindergarten, along with her mother Janet, a civil rights attorney who'd been fighting police corruption for 20 years. "We saw the news," Janet said, ushering them inside. "The whole city's watching. Half of them think you're a hero. The other half believe Rollins' story that you're a power-hungry dictator destroying the force from within." The third mini-climax struck when Tasha showed them her phone. A video was going viral, edited footage, making it look like Marcus had attacked Carver unprovoked with Kiana's face digitally altered to appear aggressive and threatening. The comments were a cesspool of hate and death threats. "They're trying to flip the narrative," Janet explained. "Classic disinformation campaign. We need to counter it fast." "I have the original footage." Marcus pulled out his phone, but it was dead. When he tried to power it on, nothing happened. "What the—" "They probably triggered a remote wipe," Janet said grimly. "These people have resources we're just beginning to understand." A knock at the door made everyone freeze. Marcus drew his weapon, motioning for the others to get back. The knock came again, followed by a familiar voice. "Chief, it's Williams. Officer Williams. I've got something you need to see." Marcus cracked the door, weapon ready. Williams stood there, but he wasn't alone. Behind him was someone Marcus never expected to see. Deputy Mayor Harold Carson, the mayor's right hand, and until tonight, someone Marcus thought was an enemy. "Before you shoot," Carson raised his hands, "you need to know the mayor's been arrested. Rollins had federal marshals pick her up an hour ago on fabricated corruption charges. He's claiming she was taking bribes to appoint you." The fourth mini-climax hit with the force of a sledgehammer. Their one political ally neutralized. Marcus felt the walls closing in. "That's impossible. The FBI was with her." "Some of them are in on it," Williams interrupted. "Agent Coleman, the one who tried to protect you. She's been relieved of duty. They're saying she was romantically involved with you, compromised the investigation." "That's insane. I met her 3 hours ago." "Doesn't matter what's true anymore," Carson said. "It's about what they can make people believe. And right now they're winning the propaganda war." Kiana stepped forward, her jaw set with determination that reminded Marcus of her late mother. "Then we fight back with truth. We go public with everything." "With what?" Carson asked. "They destroyed the evidence, control the narrative, and have half the force ready to shoot you on sight." The fifth mini-climax erupted when Tasha suddenly gasped, staring at her phone. "Oh my God! Kiana! They're at your house!" The screen showed a live stream from someone in their neighborhood. Their home was in flames, firefighters battling an inferno that had already consumed most of the structure. Everything they owned, every photo of Kiana's mother, every memory gone. Marcus felt Kiana collapse against him, her strong facade finally cracking. "Mom's pictures, her journals, everything. I'm so sorry, baby." "Wait." Tasha zoomed in on the footage. "Look at that car. Isn't that—" She was right. Parked just outside the frame was Carver's personal vehicle, his distinctive vanity plate barely visible. He'd wanted them to know he was responsible. The sixth mini-climax struck when Williams's radio crackled to life. All units. Chief Marcus Tate is wanted for questioning in the murder of Detective Raymond Thompson. Consider armed and dangerous. Approach with extreme caution." "Thompson's dead." Marcus stared at the radio. "We left him unconscious, but—" "They killed him," Janet said quietly. "Eliminated a witness and framed you for it. 2 birds, 1 stone." The sound of helicopters grew louder. Searchlights swept across the warehouse windows. They'd been found. There's a tunnel. Janet grabbed emergency bags she'd clearly prepared in advance. Old Prohibition-era smuggling route. Leads to the river. They plunged into darkness, the tunnel dank and narrow. Behind them, they could hear boots on concrete, shouts of, "Clear," as rooms were searched. Kiana's hand found Marcus's in the darkness, both drawing strength from the connection. They emerged near the Detroit River, the Canadian skyline glittering across the water. A boat waited. Janet had thought of everything. No. Marcus stopped. "We run, now we never stop running," and they win. The seventh mini-climax peaked when spotlights found them. Marcus Tate. "This is Deputy Chief Rollins. You're surrounded. Surrender now, and your daughter won't be harmed." "Like you didn't harm Thompson," Marcus called back. "Thompson was a tragedy. A good cop who chose the wrong side. Don't make his mistake." Carson stepped forward, pulling out his phone. "I'm live streaming this. Whatever happens here, the world sees it." "You think that matters?" Rollins emerged from the shadows, backed by 24 officers in tactical gear. "You think anyone cares about truth anymore? We control the narrative. Watch." He held up his own phone, showing a news report already running. According to the breaking news, Marcus Tate had gone rogue, killing Detective Thompson when he tried to stop Marcus from destroying evidence of his own corruption. Deepfake videos showed Marcus taking bribes, fabricated documents painted him as a longtime criminal. "By morning, you'll be America's most wanted." A corrupt cop who played the race card when he got caught. The eighth mini-climax hit when Kiana stepped out from behind her father. "You're forgetting something, Deputy Chief." "What's that little girl?" She held up her own phone. "Generation Z doesn't watch your news channels. We make our own." Her live stream had 50,000 viewers and climbing. The comments were flying by too fast to read, but the sentiment was clear. They weren't buying Rollins' version. "Shoot us now," Kiana challenged. "Show them who you really are." Rollins' face contorted with rage. He raised his weapon. The ninth mini-climax exploded as a sniper's bullet took off Rollins' ear. He screamed, dropping his gun as more shots rang out. Federal agents, the real ones, not Rollins' corrupted puppets, emerged from positions around the warehouse district. "Deputy Chief Rollins, you're under arrest." Agent Director Michael Foster announced a man Marcus recognized from national news as the FBI's corruption specialist. "We've been investigating you for 18 months. Tonight's activities just gave us everything we needed." "You set me up." Rollins snarled at Marcus through his pain. "No," Foster corrected. "You set yourself up. Chief Tate just had the courage to stand up to you. Made you sloppy. Desperate." As Rollins was dragged away, Foster approached Marcus. "We've been trying to crack Detroit's corruption ring for years. You've given us the opening we needed. But this is far from over." The 10th mini-climax struck when one of the tactical officers suddenly turned his weapon on Foster. "Blue line forever." Marcus moved on instinct, tackling Foster as bullets flew. Other agents returned fire and the corrupt officer fell. But his dying words chilled Marcus's blood. "You have no idea how many of us there are." Dawn was breaking as they were escorted to a federal safe house. Kiana had fallen asleep against Marcus's shoulder in the SUV, exhausted by terror and adrenaline. But Marcus couldn't rest. His phone, a new secure one provided by Foster, buzzed with messages. "Officer Martinez. Chief 7 officers just quit rather than work under you." Officer Williams. "Sir, someone vandalized your office. Spray-painted traitor across your desk." But there were other messages too. Citizens offering support. Officers pledging loyalty. A text from an unknown number that simply said, "Thompson kept copies of everything. Locker 447, bus station." The 11th mini-climax peaked when they reached the safe house to find it wasn't so safe. News vans were already there, cameras rolling. Someone had leaked the location. As they pulled up, Marcus saw him Carver standing among the reporters like he belonged there, his press credentials seemingly legitimate. "Chief Tate," Carver called out. Cameras turning to catch the confrontation. "Care to comment on the allegations that you've been taking money from drug dealers?" "That's close enough." "Carver." Marcus kept Kiana behind him. "It's Mr. Carver now. I've retired from the force to pursue journalism. First story, the corrupt chief who destroyed Detroit's finest." The rage that filled Marcus was volcanic, but Kiana's hand on his arm held him back. "He's baiting you, Dad. Don't give him what he wants." The 12th mini-climax hit when Agent Foster received a call. His face went pale. "There's been an incident at the Federal Detention Center. Rollins is dead." "What? How?" "Apparent suicide. Hung himself with his sheets." Marcus knew immediately it was murder. Someone had silenced Rollins before he could talk. The conspiracy went deeper than just the Detroit PD. "We're not safe anywhere," Janet said quietly. "They have people everywhere." "Then we go offensive," Marcus decided. "No more running, no more reacting. We take the fight to them." "How?" Carson asked. "They control the police, have people in the FBI, the media." "But they don't control the streets," Kiana interrupted, showing her phone. "Look at this." The hashtag #StandWithTate was trending globally. Protests were forming in Detroit, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. The edited videos had backfired, people could spot deep fakes now, and the obvious manipulation had only fueled outrage. The 13th mini-climax erupted when Tasha screamed. She'd been checking her own social media when she found something horrific: photos of her edited into pornographic images being spread across the internet with her real name and address. "They're coming after our families." Janet pulled her daughter close. "Anyone who stands with you." Marcus felt the weight of responsibility crushing him. It was one thing to risk his own life, even Kiana's, but innocent people were being targeted because of his stand. His phone rang. Unknown number. Against his better judgment, he answered. "Having second thoughts, Chief." The voice was electronically distorted, but the menace was clear. "This is just the beginning. Every person who supports you will suffer. Their homes, their jobs, their reputations will destroy it all." "Who are you?" "We're the system, Tate. The real system that keeps this city running. You think you're fighting corruption. You're fighting civilization itself. Without us, Detroit becomes another wasteland. Detroit's already a wasteland for people like my daughter." "Your daughter?" "Yes, about her. You might want to check her school email." The 14th mini-climax peaked as Kiana opened her school account. An email from the administration she'd been expelled. Pending investigation into violent behavior and criminal associations. "They can't do this," Kiana said, but her voice was small young. The reality of what they were facing was settling in. "Oh, we can do so much more," the voice continued. "Your bank accounts, check them." Marcus did. Frozen. All of them. Even Kiana's college fund. "Your credit cards, your mortgage, which doesn't matter since your house is gone, your insurance claims all denied. You don't exist in the system anymore, Tate. You're a ghost." The line went dead. In the silence that followed, Marcus could feel everyone looking at him, waiting for him to have answers he didn't possess. The 15th and final mini-climax struck when Foster's phone buzzed. He answered, his face cycling through expressions of disbelief and horror. When he hung up, his hands were shaking. "The Attorney General just called. The corruption investigation is being shut down. National security grounds. We're being ordered to stand down effective immediately." "They got to the federal government." Marcus couldn't hide his shock. "Not they," Foster corrected. "Someone with enough pull to make the AG back off. We're dealing with something bigger than dirty cops, Chief. This is organized crime at the highest levels." As Foster's team prepared to withdraw, leaving them essentially defenseless, a text came through on Marcus's phone. From Thompson's widow. "Ray left something for you. Said if anything happened, give it to the only honest cop he knew. Meeting you at the cemetery. Come alone. Marcus knew it could be a trap. Everything could be a trap now. But Thompson had been his partner for 5 years before the corruption claimed him. Maybe in his final moments, he'd tried to make things right. "I have to go," Marcus told the others. "Dad, no." Kiana grabbed his arm. "It's obviously a trap." "Maybe. But if Thompson left evidence, real evidence, it might be our only chance." As he prepared to leave, Kiana stood up. "Then I'm coming with you." "Absolutely not. Dad, they're after me either way. At least together we can watch each other's backs." Before he could argue further, every phone in the room lit up with an emergency alert. A massive explosion in downtown Detroit. The federal building where all the evidence from tonight's arrests was being held was gone. In the chaos of news reports and emergency responses, no one noticed the black van pulling up outside. By the time Marcus saw the men in masks approaching the door, it was too late. The door exploded inward. Smoke grenades filled the room. In the chaos, Marcus heard Kiana scream, felt her hand torn from his. When the smoke cleared, she was gone. A phone had been left behind. It rang immediately. "You should have walked away, Tate." Carver's voice no longer hiding. "Now your daughter pays the price. You want to see her alive again? Come to the old Packard plant, alone, 1 hour, or we mail her back to you in pieces." The room spun around Marcus. Everything they'd fought for, everything they'd sacrificed, and now they had Kiana, his baby girl, in the hands of monsters. Janet grabbed his arm as he headed for the door. "You can't go alone. It's suicide." "It's Kiana," was all he said, and she let him go. As Marcus drove through the dawning chaos of Detroit sirens, everywhere smoke rising from multiple fires, protests turning to riots, he knew he was driving into a trap. But he also knew he'd tear down heaven and earth to save his daughter. The war for Detroit's soul had become personal, and Marcus Tate was done playing by the rules. The Packard plant loomed against Detroit's gray morning sky, like the skeleton of some prehistoric beast, 40 acres of industrial decay that had once employed thousands. Now it served as a monument to the city's collapse, and apparently as Carver's chosen killing ground. Marcus parked 3 blocks away, his service weapon feeling impossibly light against what he knew waited inside. His phone buzzed. "Williams. Chief, I'm tracking your location. You need backup." Marcus turned it off. Carver had been clear, come alone, or Kiana dies. He couldn't risk it, not when every shadow could hide a sniper's scope trained on his daughter's head. The first mini-climax hit before he even entered the plant. A homeless veteran Marcus recognized from his patrol days stumbled out of an alley, but his gait was wrong, too coordinated. The vagrant lunged with a knife, forcing Marcus to dodge and disarm him with brutal efficiency. The man's wallet fell open, a police pension card. Even the retired cops were in Carver's pocket. "They got your girl in the East Wing," the man wheezed from the ground. 30 of them, maybe more. You're walking into a slaughterhouse, Chief." Marcus left him zip-tied to a fence post and kept moving. The plant's perimeter fence had been cut in dozens of places over the years, creating a maze of entry points. He chose one that looked freshly disturbed, the metal still showing bright scratches. Inside the plant was a catacomb of rusted machinery and collapsed ceilings. Graffiti covered every surface, gang tags layered over decades of urban art. But fresh spray paint caught his eye. Trader's End, with an arrow pointing deeper into the complex. The second mini-climax erupted when the floor gave way beneath him. Marcus barely caught himself on a rusted beam dangling over a 20-foot drop onto twisted metal below. As he pulled himself up, he heard laughter echoing through the structure. "Getting slow, old man," Carver's voice boomed from hidden speakers. "Your daughter's been asking for you. Want to hear?" A scream pierced the air. Kiana's voice full of pain. Marcus's vision went red, but he forced himself to think. The sound was too clean, no echo. A recording. They were trying to make him sloppy. He navigated deeper past rooms where nature had reclaimed industry vines strangling assembly lines. Then he saw it, fresh blood on concrete, leading toward the plant's massive central hall. Not enough to be fatal, but enough to be Kiana's. The third mini-climax struck when he entered the hall. Kiana was there, suspended 30 feet up from chains attached to a crane, her mouth-taped school uniform torn and bloody. Below her, Carver stood with 20 others, all armed, all wearing masks except him. "Right on time, Chief." Carver smiled, his face still showing bruises from their diner confrontation. "Though I'm not chief anymore, am I? Thanks to you." "Let her go, Carver. Your issue is with me." "No, my issue is with everything you represent. Progress, change, the delusion that this city can be saved." Carver pulled out a remote. "See, Detroit works because people like us keep the animals in line. Without fear, without force, it's just another third-world hellhole." "You mean without corruption, without brutality?" "I mean without order." Carver's composure cracked slightly. "You think you're a hero? You're a disease. And diseases need to be cut out." The fourth mini-climax peaked when one of the masked figures stepped forward, removing their covering. It was Officer Jamal Peters, one of the few black cops Marcus had thought was clean, who'd even offered support after the diner incident. "Sorry, Chief," Peters said, though he didn't sound sorry at all. "But Carver pays better than righteousness. My kids need to eat." "Your kids need a father they can respect," Marcus shot back. "Respect doesn't pay for college." Peters raised his weapon. "Nothing personal." The fifth mini-climax exploded into chaos when windows shattered around the hall. Smoke grenades flew in, but not police issue something else. Figures in tactical gear rappelled through the skylights, engaging Carver's men with precise, brutal efficiency. "What the?" Carver spun, firing wildly. "This wasn't the deal you promised." A bullet took him in the shoulder, spinning him down. In the chaos, Marcus saw his chance. He sprinted for the crane controls, dodging crossfire. Bodies were dropping around him, Carver's thugs, overwhelmed by superior training and equipment. He reached the controls just as someone grabbed him from behind. Peter's blood streaming from a head wound. "You don't get it, do you? This is bigger than cops and robbers. These people own everything." Marcus drove his elbow back, feeling ribs crack. Peters dropped, and Marcus hit the crane release. Kiana dropped, but slowly, the old mechanism groaning. Too slowly. The chain would snap before she reached the ground. The sixth mini-climax struck when Marcus realized he'd have to catch her. He positioned himself as she fell the last 15 feet, the impact driving him to his knees, but keeping her safe. He tore the tape from her mouth. "Dad!" She was sobbing, shaking. "They killed Tasha, Dad. They made me watch." "No, baby, no." But even as he held her, Marcus felt ice in his veins. Tasha, that bright, brilliant girl, who'd been like a second daughter to him. The shooting had stopped. The tactical team had eliminated or subdued all of Carver's men. Their leader approached, removing his helmet to reveal a face Marcus recognized from old FBI photos. Sebastian Cross, former Delta Force, now running the most elite private military contractor in the country. "Chief Tate," Cross nodded. "We need to talk." "Who hired you?" "Someone who believes Detroit needs saving. Someone with the resources to do what the government won't." The seventh mini-climax hit when Cross handed Marcus a tablet. On it, a video call was already connected. The face that appeared made Marcus's blood run cold. Vincent Kozlowski, the billionaire who owned half of Detroit's waterfront and had been trying to gentrify the city for decades. "Hello, Chief Tate. I believe we can help each other." "You're behind this. Behind saving your daughter." "Yes. Behind the corruption, no. That cancer has been growing for decades. I'm offering chemotherapy." "By killing cops. By removing obstacles to progress. Carver and his network have cost me hundreds of millions in development deals. They protect the gangs who run drugs through my properties, extort my contractors, drive away investment. It's bad for business." The eighth mini-climax peaked when Carver, wounded but not dead, started laughing. "You idiots! You think Kozlowski's your savior. Tell them about the waterfront project, Vinny. Tell them about the families you're planning to displace." "Shut him up," Cross ordered, but Carver kept talking. 15,000 units of public housing demolished for luxury condos. Every person you're supposedly saving, Chief, they'll be homeless in 5 years. You just traded one devil for another. Kozlowski's expression didn't change. "Progress requires sacrifice. But unlike these thugs, I offer compensation, relocation assistance, job training." "Bullshit." Kiana pulled free from Marcus. "You offer displacement, gentrification, the death of Black Detroit." "I offer a future," Kozlowski countered. "Would you prefer the current arrangement? Your friend Tasha is dead because—" "Don't you dare say her name." Kiana lunged at the tablet, but Marcus caught her. The ninth mini-climax erupted when sirens filled the air, dozens of them converging on the plant. But these weren't regular police. Marcus recognized the distinctive sound of federal vehicles. "Seems our time is up," Cross said calmly. "Chief Tate, you have 2 choices. Come with us. Let us protect you while we clean up this city our way. Or stay, get arrested for the bloodbath here, and watch your daughter go into foster care while you rot in prison." "There's a third option," a new voice said. Agent Foster entered, but he wasn't alone. Behind him, incredibly, stood Mayor Patricia Williams, supposedly arrested, definitely free. "The arrest was theater," the mayor explained. "We needed Rollins to think he'd won to get sloppy. He did. Before his suicide, he gave us everything. Names, dates, accounts. The entire network." The 10th mini-climax struck when Foster placed Cross under arrest. "Sebastian Cross, you're under arrest for murder conspiracy and about 30 other charges." Cross's men raised their weapons, but Foster's agents outnumbered them 3-1. "Stand down, Cross. It's over." "You're making a mistake," Kozlowski's voice came from the tablet. "I'm trying to save this city by becoming its new king." Marcus picked up the device. "No thanks. Detroit doesn't need another master. It needs justice." "You just signed your city's death warrant, Tate." The feed cut. Cross and his men were cuffed and led away. But Carver was gone, a blood trail leading to a loading dock where tire tracks showed a recent departure. "He won't get far," Foster assured them. "We have roadblocks." The 11th mini-climax hit when Marcus's new phone rang. Unknown number. He knew before answering what he'd hear. "You should have taken the deal, Chief." Carver's voice was weak but venomous. "Now everyone you love dies, starting with your brother." "I don't have a—" Marcus stopped. Michael, his estranged half-brother who'd taken their mother's maiden name, who Marcus hadn't spoken to in 5 years. "If you touch him, check the news." Every phone in the room buzzed with alerts. Breaking news: a bombing at a community center in Southfield. 7 dead, including Michael Brooks, a social worker who'd dedicated his life to helping at-risk youth. Marcus fell to his knees. Kiana caught him, their roles reversed. "Dad, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, baby. None of this is your fault." The 12th mini-climax peaked when Janet Williams burst in, her face streaked with tears. "They took her body, Tasha's body, from the morgue. They took my baby." The cruelty of it was breathtaking. Even in death, they wouldn't let the innocent rest. Marcus stood, something fundamental shifting inside him. The rules, the system, the proper channels, none of it mattered anymore. "Mayor Williams," he said formally, "I'm tendering my resignation as chief of police, effective immediately." "Marcus, no. I can't fight them as a cop. The badge comes with too many restrictions." He pulled out his shield and gun, placing them on a rusted conveyor belt. "But as a private citizen, I can do what needs to be done." The 13th mini-climax erupted when Officer Williams and Martinez entered along with 30 other cops Marcus recognized as the good ones, the clean ones. They formed a line and one by one placed their badges next to his. "If you're out, "We're out," Williams said simply. "This is insane," Foster protested. "You're talking about vigilantism." "No," Mayor Williams said quietly. "They're talking about revolution." She looked at the assembled officers. "I can't officially sanction this, but I can't stop private citizens from protecting their city either." As they walked out of the Packard plant, the media was waiting. Hundreds of cameras, thousands of protesters behind police barricades. Someone had leaked everything, the footage from inside the mayor's revelation Kozlowski's involvement. Marcus stood before the cameras, Kiana beside him, their small army of former cops behind them. "Detroit, you've been lied to, manipulated. Your police force has been corrupted by criminals, your government infiltrated by those who see you as dollar signs. Today that changes." The 14th mini-climax struck when someone in the crowd threw a bottle, then another. But not at Marcus at the police line. The remaining cops, the ones still loyal to the old system, raised their shields as the crowd pressed forward. "Stand down," the mayor ordered, but her words were lost in the roar. The riot that erupted was unlike anything Detroit had seen since 1967. But this time, it wasn't race that divided the battle lines. It was justice versus corruption, change versus status quo. Marcus tried to pull Kiana away, but she stood firm. "No, Dad. They need to see us. Need to know we're not running anymore." Through the chaos, Marcus spotted him, Carver, despite his wound, standing on a police vehicle with a megaphone. "Citizens of Detroit, these terrorists have killed your protectors. They've destroyed the thin blue line that keeps you safe." The crowd's response was immediate and violent. They pulled Carver down, and he disappeared into a sea of righteous fury. Marcus didn't try to stop them. Couldn't even if he'd wanted to. The 15th and final mini-climax of Part 3 exploded when the ground beneath them started to rumble. Not an earthquake. Detroit didn't have earthquakes. Marcus grabbed Kiana, pulling her back as the street cracked open. A gas main explosion, but not accidental. The blast threw them backward, ears ringing, vision blurred. When the smoke cleared, a message had been spray-painted on the one standing wall. "You started a war. We'll finish it. The blue line." As Part 3 ended, Marcus stood in the rubble of his city, holding his daughter, surrounded by former cops who'd given up everything to stand with him. The official system had failed. The private solution had been corrupted before it began. Now they were truly on their own. But as he looked at the faces around him, Williams Martinez, Janet still clutching a photo of Tasha, citizens picking themselves up from the riot to stand with them, Marcus realized something. They weren't alone. They were an army. Not of cops or criminals, but of people who'd had enough. "What now, Dad?" Kiana asked, voice small but determined. Marcus looked at the burning city, then at the growing crowd of supporters. "Now we take back our streets, block by block, house by house, the right way. And Carver, the blue line. They want a war!" Marcus's voice carried across the crowd. "They've got one." The revolution had begun in a diner with a punch. It had survived betrayal, murder, and corruption at every level. Now, as Detroit burned behind them, Marcus Tate and his daughter stood at the center of something unprecedented, a city ready to tear itself down and rebuild from the ashes. But in those ashes, Carver was still alive, pulled from the crowd by loyal officers at the last moment. The Blue Line was mobilizing, calling in favors from corrupt departments across the country. And somewhere, Vincent Kozlowski sat in his penthouse, planning his next move, in a game where Marcus had just refused to be a pawn. The war for Detroit's soul had only just begun, and every soul in the city would have to choose a side. There would be no neutrality in what came next, no safe harbors in the storm. As sirens wailed and helicopters circled overhead, Marcus held Kiana close, both of them knowing that tomorrow would bring fresh hell. But for the first time since that night in the diner, they weren't running. They were hunting. The abandoned church in Corktown had become their command center by necessity rather than choice. 3 days after the riot, with half of Detroit under martial law and the other half controlled by competing factions, Marcus stood before a map covered in red pins, each representing a confirmed Blue Line stronghold. Kiana worked beside him, coordinating communications with the 37 former officers who'd joined their cause, though they all knew that number meant nothing against the hundreds still loyal to the old system. "Dad, we've got movement," Kiana called from her laptop, her fingers flying across keyboards they'd salvaged from an electronics store abandoned during the riots. Facial recognition caught Carver entering the Greektown precinct. He's got maybe 40 officers with him. The first mini-climax hit when the church doors burst open. Marcus spun, weapon drawn, but it was Williams and Martinez dragging a bloodied figure between them. Officer Daniels, Carver's former partner, barely conscious and missing several teeth. "Found him trying to plant explosives under the bridge on Woodward," Williams reported. "He talked after some encouragement." Daniels spat blood on the floor. "You're all dead. Every last one of you. Carver's got something planned that'll make the riots look like a parade." "What kind of something?" Marcus knelt beside him, and for a moment Daniels saw something in the former chief's eyes that made him reconsider his loyalty to the Blue Line. "The evidence you thought was destroyed, some of it survived. Physical files in a warehouse on 8 Mile. Carver's planning to doctor them, make it look like you've been running a drug operation for years. But that's not the worst part." The second mini-climax erupted when Janet Williams burst through the side entrance, her face ashen. "They found Tasha. My baby, they found her." Everyone froze. Tasha's body had been stolen from the morgue, another cruel twist in Carver's psychological warfare. "Where?" Marcus asked gently. "Central Station, the old train depot. She's—" Janet's voice broke. "She's displayed there, like some kind of message." Marcus felt Kiana stiffen beside him. The Michigan Central Station had been abandoned for decades, a monument to Detroit's decay. Now it was a crime scene. "It's a trap," Martinez said immediately. "Has to be." "Of course it's a trap," Marcus agreed. "But we're going anyway. Janet deserves to bury her daughter." The third mini-climax struck as they approached the station in 3 vehicles when the radio crackled with emergency broadcasts. "This is emergency alert. Federal authorities report that former police chief Marcus Tate has been identified as the leader of a domestic terrorist cell. A reward of $1 million is offered for information leading to his capture." $1 million? Kiana laughed bitterly. "I'm insulted we're not worth more." But Marcus understood the real threat. In a city where poverty was endemic, $1 million would turn neighbors into hunters, friends into enemies. They were running out of safe spaces. The station loomed before them, 18 stories of broken windows and faded glory. Once it had been called the most beautiful train station in the world. Now it was a gravestone for the city's ambitions. They entered through a side entrance Williams had scouted, but the fourth mini-climax hit immediately when they found themselves facing 20 Blue Line officers in tactical gear, weapons raised. "Drop them," the lead officer commanded, but something was off. Marcus recognized him. Sergeant Torres, a cop who'd always played it straight. "Torres, you're with them now." Torres's hand shook slightly. "They have my son Tate. Grabbed him from school. Said if I don't play along." His voice cracked. "I'm sorry." The fifth mini-climax peaked when Kiana stepped forward, hands raised. "Then we help you get him back. That's what we do now. We save everyone Carver's hurting." "Shut up." Another officer, one Marcus didn't recognize, slammed his rifle butt into Kiana's stomach. She doubled over, and Marcus saw red. The fight that erupted was brutal and quick. Marcus moved like liquid violence, years of training combined with paternal rage. Williams and Martinez flanked him, while Janet pulled Kiana to safety. Torres stood frozen, torn between duty and conscience. When the dust settled, 15 Blue Line officers were down, not dead, but incapacitated. Torres was on his knees sobbing. "They'll kill him now. They'll kill my boy." "No." Marcus pulled him up. "They won't. Because we're going to get him back." "Where are they holding him?" "I don't know. They never tell us. Just send proof of life videos every day we comply." The sixth mini-climax struck when they finally found Tasha's body, and it was worse than they'd imagined. She'd been positioned in the old waiting room, seated on a bench, as if waiting for a train that would never come. But it was what they'd done to her that made even hardened cops step back. Her skin had been tattooed post-mortem with one word repeated hundreds of times: traitor. Janet's scream echoed through the massive space, primal and devastating. She collapsed beside her daughter, and for a moment, everyone gave her space to grieve. But Kiana noticed something else. "Dad, look at her hand." Tasha's fingers were positioned unnaturally, forming numbers. GPS coordinates. "She's pointing us somewhere," Marcus realized. "Even in death, they're using her." The seventh mini-climax erupted when they heard vehicles surrounding the building. Dozens of them. But when Marcus looked out, he saw something unexpected. Not police vehicles, but civilian cars and trucks. Citizens armed with baseball bats and hunting rifles surrounding the station. "We've got you surrounded, Tate," someone called through a megaphone. "That $1 million is ours." "Christ," Williams muttered. Carver turned the whole city into bounty hunters. They were trapped between Blue Line forces deeper in the building and desperate citizens outside. But Kiana was already working on her laptop. "I'm hacking into the emergency broadcast system. Give me 2 minutes." "We don't have 2 minutes." Martinez pointed to the stairwell where footsteps echoed, getting closer. The eighth mini-climax peaked when the lights cut out, plunging the massive station into darkness. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in a hellish red glow. In the confusion, Marcus heard something that chilled him. Carver's voice coming from everywhere and nowhere. "Welcome to your tomb, Chief. Historic, isn't it? The place where Detroit's dreams came to die. Fitting that yours should end here, too." Muzzle flashes erupted from multiple directions. They were being herded. Marcus realized, pushed toward the center of the building. He grabbed Kiana, shielding her as they moved. "Got it!" she shouted, and suddenly, every phone, radio, and emergency speaker in a 5-mile radius came alive with her voice. "Citizens of Detroit, this is Kiana Brooks. You're being lied to. The $1 million bounty, it doesn't exist. Check the federal websites. There's no authorization, no funding. Carver's playing you, using you as cannon fodder. Meanwhile, he's holding children hostage, including Officer Torres's 8-year-old son. Is this the Detroit you want? Where cops kidnap kids to ensure loyalty?" The ninth mini-climax hit when the crowd outside began to disperse, but inside Carver's forces were closing in. They made it to the main hall, a vast space where trains once departed for everywhere in America. Now it was an arena. Carver stood at the far end with 30 officers. But what made Marcus's blood freeze was who stood with him. Michael Thompson. Ray Thompson's supposedly clean younger brother wearing a detective's shield. Surprised. Michael smiled coldly. "You killed my brother Tate. Did you think I'd let that slide? Your brother was dirty and you know it. He was family." Michael's composure cracked. "That used to mean something in this department, before outsiders like you tried to change everything." The 10th mini-climax erupted into total war when Foster and his FBI team breached from the upper levels, rappelling down with flashbang grenades. The main hall became a battlefield, 3 factions fighting desperately: Marcus's group, Carver's Blue Line, and federal agents trying to arrest everyone. In the chaos, Marcus lost sight of Kiana. He fought desperately through the melee, searching for her. Bodies fell around him, the air thick with smoke and cordite. "Dad!" Her voice cut through the noise. She was cornered by Carver himself, his gun pressed to her temple. "Everybody stop!" Carver roared. The fighting gradually ceased, all eyes turning to the center of the drama. "This is how it ends, Tate," Carver announced. "You're going to confess. To everything. The corruption, the murders, all of it. You're going to say it was all you, that you forced good cops to follow your criminal orders. Never. Then your daughter dies, and after her every person who supported you. We have lists, addresses, families. The 11th mini-climax peaked when Torres, who'd been silent since the revelation about his son, suddenly spoke up. I know where the kids are. Everyone turned to him. He was holding a phone showing a video. My son's not the only one. They've got dozens of cops' kids, anyone who might waver. They're in the old Kronk Recreation Center. Shut up. Michael Thompson raised his weapon toward Torres, but Williams was faster, tackling him before he could fire. It's over, Carver, Foster called out. We have the location. Units are already en route. But Carver just smiled. You think I'm stupid enough to keep them in one place? He pulled out a detonator. Kronk's rigged to blow. So is every other site. You arrest me, they all die. The 12th mini-climax struck when Kiana did something no one expected. She bit down hard on Carver's gun hand, drawing blood and breaking free. As he recoiled, she grabbed his detonator and sprinted toward the gaping hole where massive windows once stood, overlooking a 60-foot drop to the abandoned tracks below. You want this. She held the device over the edge. Come get it. You stupid little... Carver charged after her, but Marcus was already moving. Father and corrupt cop collided at full speed, crashing through debris. They fought with desperate savagery, each knowing this was the end one way or another. Carver was younger, stronger, but Marcus fought with something beyond physical strength, the fury of a father protecting his child. The 13th mini-climax erupted when Michael Thompson broke free from Williams and fired. The bullet caught Marcus in the shoulder, spinning him down. Carver stood over him triumphant, reaching for his backup weapon. Goodbye, Chief. The shot that rang out wasn't from Carver's gun. He looked down in shock at the spreading red stain on his chest, then turned to see Janet Williams holding a smoking pistol, tears streaming down her face. That's for Tasha, you son of a bitch! Carver fell to his knees, blood frothing from his mouth. But even dying, he managed to smile. You think you've won the blue line. Is bigger than me, bigger than Detroit. Every city, every department. We're everywhere. The 14th mini-climax peaked when the FBI radios erupted with reports. The children had been found and rescued, but Carver had been telling the truth. Similar operations were being exposed in Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. The corruption was a cancer that had metastasized across the entire country. As Carver breathed his last, staring at the ceiling of the place where Detroit's dreams had died, something else was being born. Videos of the confrontation were already viral, live-streamed by citizens who'd snuck in during the battle. The image of Kiana standing at the edge, willing to die, rather than let corruption win, became an instant symbol of resistance. But the victory felt hollow, as Marcus bled on the floor, Kiana pressing desperately on his wound. Stay with me, Dad. Please stay with me. I'm not going anywhere, baby, he managed, though his vision was darkening at the edges. The 15th and final mini-climax struck when Foster received a call that made his face go pale. He walked over to where Marcus was being treated by paramedics. Chief Tate. I mean, Mr. Tate, there's something you need to know. Carver's dead man's switch just activated. He had videos, recordings, documents. Everything's being released to the media right now. What kind of everything? Every dirty cop in America. Every payoff, every murder, every cover-up for the last 20 years. But also, Foster hesitated. Everyone who ever cooperated. Informants, witnesses, undercover officers. He's burning it all down. As Part 4 ended, Marcus was being loaded into an ambulance, Kiana refusing to leave his side. The corrupt temple of the Michigan Central Station stood behind them now, truly a monument not to decay, but to the moment when one city's fight became a nation's reckoning. But in exposing everything, Carver had signed death warrants for thousands of innocent people whose names were now public. The blue line might be exposed, but they were far from defeated. And somewhere in a penthouse overlooking the Detroit River, Vincent Kozlowski watched the chaos with interest, already planning how to profit from the power vacuum. The war for Detroit had become a war for America's soul, and Marcus Tate, bleeding and barely conscious, had become its unlikely general with his 17-year-old daughter as its symbol. The sirens wailing through Detroit streets weren't just for the wounded. They were the sound of a system dying and something new being born in blood and fire. Whether that something would be better or worse remained to be seen. As the ambulance pulled away, Kiana held her father's hand and looked out at their burning city. They'd won the battle, but the war was just beginning. Every victory had come at a cost, and the bill was far from paid. Tomorrow would bring new enemies, new betrayals, new impossible choices. But tonight, they were alive. They were together. And for now, that was enough. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and fear. Marcus drifted in and out of consciousness for 3 days, while Kiana maintained her vigil sleeping in the uncomfortable chair beside his bed. The bullet had been removed, but infection had set in, and the doctors spoke in hushed tones about percentages and complications. Outside Detroit burned and rebuilt itself simultaneously, the exposed corruption files creating a purge unlike anything America had ever seen. Marcus woke to find Kiana asleep, her head resting on his bed, her hand still clutching his. But they weren't alone. Vincent Kozlowski sat in the corner, impeccably dressed, despite the chaos consuming the city. "Don't try to move," Kozlowski said quietly. "The guards outside are mine. The ones the FBI posted mysteriously disappeared an hour ago." Marcus's hand inched toward the call button, but Kozlowski shook his head. "I'm not here to harm you, Tate. Quite the opposite. You've done me a favor. With Carver's network exposed and dismantled, my development projects can finally proceed without extortion and interference." "You mean you can displace thousands of families without opposition?" "I mean I can rebuild this city into something worthy of its history, but I need stability, and you're the only one who can provide it." Marcus laughed though it hurt. "I'm not a cop anymore. I have no authority." "Authority comes in many forms." Kozlowski stood, placing a folder on the bedside table. "Inside you'll find incorporation papers for a private security firm. Funding for 5 years. Equipment, vehicles, legal protection. All you have to do is maintain order in the neighborhoods I'm developing." "Become your private army, you mean?" "Become Detroit's future. The government has failed. The police are finished, half arrested, half fled. Someone needs to fill the vacuum before the gangs take over completely." Before Marcus could respond, the door burst open. Agent Foster entered with federal marshals' weapons drawn. "Vincent Kozlowski, you're under arrest for conspiracy, bribery of federal officials, and about 50 other charges," Carver's files revealed. Kozlowski smiled as they cuffed him. "Check your phones, gentlemen." Every agent's phone buzzed simultaneously. Foster's face went pale as he read. "The president's been assassinated. The vice president too. Congress is calling an emergency session." "What?" Marcus struggled to sit up, Kiana now awake and alarmed. "The blue line," Foster said quietly. "Carver's files showed they had members in the Secret Service. They must have activated them when they realized they were exposed." Kozlowski laughed as they dragged him away. "You wanted to tear down the system, Tate. Congratulations! Now watch the country devour itself." The room fell silent, except for the heart monitor's steady beep. Then Kiana's laptop chimed with an encrypted message. She opened it carefully, her face cycling through confusion to horror. "Dad, you need to see this." The video showed Officer Williams, but not as they knew him. He was in a warehouse executing 3 bound men while others watched. The timestamp was from 2 years ago. "That's impossible," Marcus said. "Williams is one of the good ones." Another message arrived. This one showed Martinez taking money from a drug dealer. Then another of Janet Williams meeting with Kozlowski months ago, long before any of this started. "They're all compromised," Kiana whispered. "Everyone we trusted." The door opened again. This time it was Williams himself, Martinez beside him. They entered casually, but Marcus noticed their hands hovering near their weapons. "Chief," Williams said, though the title felt like mockery now. "We need to talk. About which part, the murders you committed or the bribes you took?" Williams' expression didn't change. "About survival. Yours and your daughter's." "You were playing all sides," Marcus realized. "The whole time." "We were surviving," Martinez corrected. "You think anyone stays clean in Detroit?" "Really clean. We all made compromises. The only difference between us and Carver was degree." "You let me believe—" "We let you be the hero the city needed," Williams interrupted. "And you played your part perfectly. The crusader, the reformer. You drew out all the worst elements, made them expose themselves. While you stayed hidden in the shadows. While we survived. And now with Carver gone, Kozlowski arrested the FBI, overwhelmed with a national crisis, we're offering you a choice. Join us in rebuilding Detroit our way, or you'll kill us," Kiana said flatly. "Or you'll tragically succumb to your injuries," Martinez said. "Your daughter, overwhelmed with grief, takes her own life. Very sad. The city mourns its heroes." Marcus looked at his daughter, seeing the same realization in her eyes. They'd been pawns in a game so complex that even exposing it hadn't ended it. The corruption wasn't a tumor to be removed, but the entire body sick to its core. "We need time to think," Marcus said. "You have 1 hour." Williams placed a phone on the bedside table. "Call when you've decided." They left and Marcus immediately checked the window. Snipers on adjacent rooftops, their scopes glinting in the afternoon sun. The parking lot below was filled with unmarked vans. They were completely boxed in. "Dad, I'm scared." "Me too, baby." He pulled her close, feeling the weight of every decision that had brought them here. "But we're not done fighting. How they have us surrounded. Everyone we trusted betrayed us. The whole country's falling apart." Marcus picked up the phone Williams had left, but instead of calling him, he dialed a number from memory. It rang 3 times before a familiar voice answered. "Thompson residence." Ray Thompson." There was a pause. "Marcus, but I'm dead. You killed me, remember?" "Apparently death is negotiable in Detroit. Where are you?" "Safe house on the Canadian side. Faked my death when I realized how deep this went." "Marcus, you have no idea what you've stumbled into." "Then tell me." "Not over the phone. Can you get to the river?" "We're trapped in the hospital." "No, you're not. Check the medical waste chute. 3rd floor east wing. It leads to an old smuggling tunnel from Prohibition. I'll meet you at the exit." Marcus looked at Kiana. "You up for one more escape?" She was already packing what they could carry. "Always." They moved through the hospital, carefully avoiding the corridors where Williams had posted guards. The medical waste chute was exactly where Thompson had said, and though the smell was overwhelming, the tunnel beyond was clear. They emerged 20 minutes later at a defunct warehouse by the river. Thompson was waiting, but he wasn't alone. Beside him stood Chief Rollins, supposedly dead by suicide, and even more shocking, Carver himself, his chest wound bandaged, but very much alive. Marcus pushed Kiana behind him, reaching for a weapon he didn't have. "Relax," Carver said, his voice weaker but still carrying that edge of menace. "If I wanted you dead, you'd be dead. This is impossible. I watched you die." "You watched me perform," Carver corrected. "Blood packs blanks and good acting. Just like Rollins's suicide, Thompson's murder. All theater." "Why?" Rollins answered. "Because the real enemy was never each other, Tate. We've been infiltrated by something far worse than corrupt cops. The blue line you've been fighting, it's a front, a distraction from the real power." "You're insane." "Are we?" Thompson pulled out a tablet showing financial records. "Every major crime in Detroit for the last decade traced back to the same source. Every political assassination, every major drug shipment, every human trafficking ring. One organization using the blue line as cover." "Who?" "We don't know," Carver admitted, and it clearly pained him. They communicate through cutouts in encrypted channels. But we know they're planning something massive. The president's assassination was just the beginning. Kiana stepped forward. Why should we believe anything you say? You tortured us, killed our friends. Tasha's alive, Thompson said quietly. The world seemed to stop. Janet Williams appeared from the shadows, and beside her, impossibly, stood Tasha. Alive, traumatized, but breathing. Mom? Kiana's voice broke. The body at the station was a Jane Doe from the morgue, Janet explained. We had to make it convincing. Had to make everyone believe she was dead so they'd stop looking for her. You let me think my best friend was dead. To save her life. Tasha spoke for the first time, her voice hoarse. They were going to kill me for real, Kiki. Make an example. This was the only way. The reunion was tearful, but brief. Time was running out, and Thompson was watching his phone nervously. We have maybe 10 minutes before Williams realizes you're gone, he said. Here's what's really happening. In 6 hours, coordinated attacks will hit 12 major cities. Not terrorism, something worse. Complete infrastructure collapse. Power grids, water systems, communication networks. America will go dark. How do you know? Because we were supposed to help facilitate it, Carver said. The blue line was meant to prevent any police response. But when you started your crusade, Tate, you disrupted their timeline, forced them to accelerate. So stop them. With what authority? We're all dead or discredited. You're the only one with any credibility left, and even that's hanging by a thread. Marcus looked at the assembled group enemies who'd become reluctant allies, all of them pawns in someone else's game. What do you need from us? We need you to go back, Rollins said. Pretend to accept Williams' offer. Get inside their operation. Find out who's really running this. You want us to be double agents. Triple, technically, Thompson corrected with dark humor. But who's counting? Kiana took her father's hand. If we do this, and it goes wrong, then America falls, Carver said bluntly. No pressure. They returned to the hospital through the same tunnel, emerging just as Williams was entering Marcus's room. His eyes narrowed, seeing them dirty and disheveled. Going somewhere. Just needed air. Marcus lied. Hospitals make me claustrophobic. And your decision? Marcus looked at Kiana, who nodded slightly. We're in. But we want guarantees, protection, resources, and answers. Williams smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You'll get all three. Welcome to the real game, Tate. They were taken to a building in downtown Detroit Marcus had never seen before, despite knowing the city intimately. Hidden in plain sight, it looked like any other office building, but inside it was a fortress of technology and weapons. This is where we really run the city, Martinez explained as they rode the elevator to the top floor. The precinct city hall. Those are just facades. The top floor was a single massive room filled with screens showing feeds from across Detroit and beyond. At the center sat someone Marcus never expected, Mayor Patricia Williams. Hello, Marcus. I believe you thought I was one of the good ones. You played me from the beginning. I guided you. There's a difference. Every revelation, every victory you achieved happened because I allowed it. Because it served a greater purpose. Whose purpose? She smiled and pressed a button. The screens changed, showing a man Marcus recognized from newspaper photos, Alexander Cross, tech billionaire philanthropist, and according to Forbes, the richest man in America. Good evening, Mr. Tate. Cross's voice filled the room. I've been watching your journey with great interest. You've proven yourself remarkably resilient. You're behind all this. I'm behind humanity's next evolution. In 6 hours, the old world ends. Governments fall, borders dissolve, and from the chaos, a new order emerges, one based on efficiency logic and proper management of resources. You're talking about dictatorship. I'm talking about survival. Climate change, overpopulation, resource depletion, democracy is too slow to address these crises. We need decisive action. Murdering millions isn't decisive, it's genocide. No one needs to die if the transition is smooth. That's where you come in. You've become a symbol of justice of change. If you endorse the new order, resistance will crumble." Marcus laughed bitterly. "You think I'd betray everything I've fought for? I think you'll do anything to protect your daughter." The screens changed, showing Kiana from multiple angles, red laser dots dancing across her body. "Sniper's eye control. One word from me and she dies." But Kiana stepped forward unafraid. "Then say the word, because we'd rather die fighting than live as your puppets." Cross's expression shifted, perhaps respect, perhaps annoyance. "You have your father's courage. Very well. I'll make you a different offer. Stop me, if you can." "What?" "You have 5 hours and 43 minutes. Stop the attacks, save the country, prove that democracy can triumph. If you succeed, I'll abandon my plans. If you fail, you join me willingly." The screens went dark. Mayor Williams and the others stood frozen, and Marcus realized they were just as shocked as he was. "He's insane," Martinez muttered. "No," the mayor said quietly. "He's so confident in his plan that he doesn't believe we can stop it." Marcus's mind raced. "Where are the attacks being coordinated from?" "We don't know. Cross compartmentalized everything." "Then we find out." Kiana was already at a terminal, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "Every system has vulnerabilities. You have 5 hours to hack the most sophisticated network in existence." "No," she said, and for the first time in days, she smiled. "We have 5 hours, and we have something Cross doesn't expect." "What's that?" She held up her phone, showing thousands of messages pouring in. Everyone. Carver's files exposed everyone who lost someone to corruption, everyone who's been fighting alone. They're all reaching out. We have an army of hackers, whistleblowers, and patriots ready to fight. You want to crowdsource saving America? I want to prove that people united are stronger than any dictator. Marcus looked at his daughter with pride and terror in equal measure. "Then let's get to work." What followed was the longest 5 hours of their lives. Kiana coordinated with hackers across the globe, while Marcus and the unlikely alliance of former enemies worked to identify and secure potential targets. Every lead was followed, every connection traced. With 2 hours remaining, they found it. Cross's coordination center was in the Renaissance Center, hidden in plain sight in the heart of Detroit. But it was defended by military contractors, automated defenses, and systems designed to be unhackable. "We'll never breach it in time," Thompson said. "Not with a direct assault." Marcus agreed. But Cross made one mistake. He gave us access to this building, to these systems. He's connected to us. You want to hack backwards through his own challenge? I want to give him exactly what he expects: our failure. Make him lower his guard. With 30 minutes remaining, Marcus made the call. "Cross, we surrender. You win. We'll join you." "I'm disappointed, Mr. Tate. I expected more fight." "You were right. Democracy failed. We can't stop you. We're coming to the Renaissance Center to pledge our loyalty." "Come then. Watch the birth of a new world." They arrived with 10 minutes to spare. Cross's forces let them pass, confident in victory. The control room was massive screens showing countdown timers for each target city. Cross stood at the center, looking every inch the emperor he planned to become. "Welcome to history, Mr. Tate." "Thank you for having us," Marcus said. Then quietly, "Now Kiana." She pulled out her phone, but instead of trying to hack anything, she simply started a live stream. "Hello, America. This is Kiana Brooks, and we're about to stop a terrorist attack. Watch and learn what people united can accomplish." Cross laughed. "You think exposure will stop me? I own the media, the platforms." "You own the old systems," Kiana corrected. "But you don't own the people." Across the country, in every target city, citizens were mobilizing. The hackers hadn't been trying to stop the attacks directly. They'd been identifying them, mapping them, and broadcasting the information. Power station workers were manually disconnecting vulnerable systems. Water treatment plant employees were switching to backup protocols. IT specialists were air-gapping critical infrastructure. "It's impossible," Cross muttered, watching his carefully orchestrated collapse being prevented by thousands of ordinary people. "They don't have the coordination, the training." "They have something better," Marcus said. "They have each other." Cross's expression cycled through disbelief, rage, and finally something like acceptance. "You've delayed the inevitable. Climate change, resource wars, they're still coming. Maybe, but we'll face them together as free people. Together." Cross laughed bitterly. "You really think this coalition of enemies will last? That Carver and his thugs have truly changed?" As if in answer, Carver stepped forward. "No, I haven't changed. I'm still the same bastard who beat suspects and took bribes. But even I know that some things are bigger than personal gain. Even I have lines I won't cross." "We're not perfect," Marcus added. "Democracy isn't perfect, but it's better than your alternative." With 2 minutes remaining, Cross made his choice. He entered a code into his console, and the countdown stopped. Across America, the attacks were aborted. "You've won this round, Tate. But I'll be watching. When your precious democracy fails, and it will, I'll be ready. And we'll be ready for you." Cross walked out, his security detail following. No one tried to stop him. They'd prevented the immediate threat, but arresting him would require evidence they didn't have, laws that hadn't been written for this kind of warfare. As the crisis passed, the unlikely alliance began to fracture. Carver and his Blue Line remnants slipped away, as did Thompson and Rollins. They were still criminals, still wanted, but for one night, they'd been heroes. "This isn't over," Mayor Williams said, and it wasn't clear if she meant it as a threat or a promise. "No," Marcus agreed. "But maybe that's the point. Democracy isn't a destination, it's a journey. And it requires constant vigilance." As dawn broke over Detroit, Marcus and Kiana stood on the roof of the Renaissance Center, looking out at their city. It was scarred, broken in places, but still standing, still fighting. "What now, Dad?" Kiana asked. "Now we rebuild, the right way this time. And the corruption, the Blue Line Cross and others like him. We keep fighting them, but we do it together in the light where everyone can see." Kiana's phone buzzed with messages, offers from colleges, tech companies, government agencies. The girl who'd stood up to corruption had become a symbol of resistance. "I got accepted to MIT," she said quietly. "Full scholarship." "That's amazing, baby. But Detroit needs me." Marcus pulled her close. "Detroit will always need fighters, but maybe what it needs most is for you to go learn, grow, and come back stronger. And you, I'm going to run for mayor, clean up this city for real this time. You think you can win?" Marcus looked at the sunrise painting the city in gold and amber. "After everything we've survived, I think we can do anything." 6 months later, Marcus Tate was sworn in as mayor of Detroit. Kiana attended via video link from her dorm room at MIT, where she was already making waves in cybersecurity and social justice. The ceremony was held at Mama's Soul Kitchen, the diner where it all began, with Mama Washington herself administering the oath. Crime hadn't disappeared from Detroit, but it was being fought fairly. Corruption still existed, but it was exposed and punished. The city wasn't perfect, but it was healing. In his inaugural speech, Marcus said, "Detroit was never about the buildings or the industries. It was about the people, their strength, their resilience, their refusal to surrender. We've proven that ordinary citizens can stand against extraordinary evil. That democracy, however flawed, is worth fighting for." The crowd erupted in applause, but Marcus's eyes were on the live stream on his daughter's proud face. They'd started with a punch thrown in anger and ended with a city reborn in hope. The Blue Line was broken, but not destroyed, lurking in shadows, waiting for another chance. Cross and others like him still plotted in boardrooms and private islands. The fight was far from over. But for now, in this moment, they had won. A black father and daughter had stood against systemic corruption and prevailed. They'd proven that change was possible, that justice could triumph, that the moral arc of the universe did indeed bend toward justice, but only when brave people grabbed it and pulled. As the celebration continued around him, Marcus felt his phone buzz. A text from an unknown number. "The game continues, Mr. Mayor, AC." Alexander Cross hadn't given up. Neither had the forces of corruption and control. But neither had Marcus Tate. Neither had Kiana Brooks. Neither had the thousands of ordinary people who'd stood up when it mattered most. The war for America's soul would continue, but tonight, democracy had won a crucial battle. And in a diner in Detroit, where it all began, people of all colors and creeds celebrated together, united in the belief that tomorrow could be better than today. That's all democracy ever was, a promise, and a fight to keep that promise. And as Marcus Tate looked out at his city, his daughter on the screen, his people in the streets, he knew that as long as there were those willing to fight, the promise would endure. The story that began with violence had ended with hope. Not a perfect ending, but a human one. Not a final victory, but a chance to keep fighting. And sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes that's everything.